Welcome to the Real CP Show. I'm your host, CP. And today's topic, this particular Anglo Arsonist, Shooterrr, at that Michigan Church of Latter-day Saints. But black on black crime has to be blamed somehow. Deflecting on what is happening with white on white criminality fatigue again and again. Yes. White on white criminality fatigue. That's happening again and again and again and again. What was that about? This white on white criminality fatigue happening again. But at the same time, you have some people within certain sections of predominant culture and some other ones who know who they are. They'll try to figure out some kind of way of trying to act like it's something dealing with black on black crime. What do you mean by that? You don't understand? Understand what? Black on black crime. That has nothing to do with that. So before I get to this story, it's going to be a real quick show. This particular picture was a rarity overall because there are numbers of pictures. Well, I'm gonna get you this look. Remember this picture as well, right? Just remember that picture. See, the other picture they will show is this. He was a Marine. And I'm telling you, there are some sneaky people within certain parts of his culture and its various parts of main medianess and pseudo main medianess and etc. Because I had noticed how they kept trying to sit there and humanize this devious, demonic type Anglo male who sit there and unalive several church-going people and injure several people, but in the various types of articles and news places, depending on which ones overall, they still would try to humanize him and be like, well, he was a Marine and he was there. What they got to do with a damn piece of pea pod? There are numbers of people within various sections of the service that had also came from Klan background. What are they talking about? Less than 100 years ago in the service, there still was segregation. Let me repeat that because you got some coons and some sellouts and some black adjacent fleers that just came to America half a second ago that you don't understand that. Less than 100 years ago, the military was still segregated. And still in the 21st century, how many numbers of black males will tell you they have experienced some racism, hatred toward them? So just because somebody's saying they are in the service, what they got to do anything? Are they a veteran? What they got to do anything? When they sit there and try to show this kind of picture on this, right? So you have to kind of watch that situation. See, this is kind of some real situations on this too. There's some people that know you don't see a lot of people having two American flags on the back of a pickup truck unless many of them have some kind of Klan mentalities or pseudo-Klan mentalities or some type of anti-American black mentalities, right? This had nothing to do with patriotism. That old saying silly gangster gameness, right? When you had people that will talk about how the Confederacy, and oh my goodness, the Confederates, they had nothing to do with hatred of black folks when it darn did. Well, the Civil War had nothing to do with slavery, which it did, toward black folks, should we say. Well, it was about states' rights. And what was going on in 1865 for many different states? Formal segregation of American blacks. So you have to watch these little games they keep playing, but they know that millions within American blackism still don't know the games. And millions of American blacks still are allowing black adjacent fleer hodders to show blatant disrespect when many of them can't even fix things in their own countries, but have the nerve to flee over to America. I'm not talking about some of the good ones. Those are very small amount, because those very small amount only allowed to come to America. Very small. The collective of the blackjacks and fleers, they are very dangerous to Black Americans because they will step on the bodies of Black Americans. They have infiltrated politics, infiltrated many organizations. They have got themselves in certain type of HBCUs, which is a whole different topic. So you have to watch these little games, right? And people playing little people of color, minorities, communities of color, right? Underutilized communities and stuff like that. Nonsense that they know millions of American Blacks still keep allowing people to put them inside of a box, right? Like in this situation right here. This guy was atrocious on that. End of story. But at the same time, when you start bringing up, wait a minute now, what about this white on white crime fatigue? You know, what are you going to do about that? This is what they be doing. Exit stage left. Yes, they don't talk about that. So let's go ahead and let me share my screen. Oh, before I do that, because I've also done various white on white criminality, white on white criminal fatigue, various videos on that. Let me just share a screen, because people love when they certain parts of because they love trying to act like black on black crime, black on black crime, black on black crime. And they know it's not enough. Give me a second, Hero. Let me make sure which one I want to go, Hero. Right, Hero. They want to make sure to keep talking about black on black crime, black on black crime, black on black crime. And again, the nerve of some black adjacent hotter fleers, the nerve of numbers of them that can't even fix things in their own countries, right? That's a whole different topic in itself. But look at this right here. This is one of the white on white criminality topics I did not a long time ago. Violent, make sure you can see that. Oh, make sure okay, all right. Violent, disturbed Anglo male Shooterrr. Okay, I watch the word sometime. Shooterrr. 3 people, Anglos, fatality, including a child outside a Target store, right? So I did that particular one, right? She's on that part again too. Violent, disturbed, Anglo male, Shooterrr, 3 people, Anglo personnel, fatality, including a Anglo child outside a Target store. I think a white Hispanic or Anglos overall on that, right? That was one I did on that. So they get quiet on things like this. That's on my the Real CP podcast part. Let me share my screen again. On another one. Recent one that I did on a podcast. Give me a second, Hero. Oh, yeah. So don't get it confused. Oh, the primary ones that have this hatred toward Black Americans are certain ones within the Panamanian culture of Anglo maleness. The ones applies to, right? But don't get it confused. There are many chameleon tears of certain type of Anglo females, right? With the anger, feminist, misogynistic, demonic chaos inside numbers of their mentalities, because they have hatred to their own numbers of males, right? But those are different topics, right? But they love playing chameleon tears, and they know that has messed up quite a number of males within their own cultures, left and right. They see chameleon tears, they go crazy when numbers of their own women don't give a dang about their own males like that, right? So this is another one, right? Oh, hold on for a second. Give me a second. Let me get out of here. Get that out of here. Give me a second here. Give me one moment here. So this is, make sure you can see this. So this is another one. You see, she says, Anglo particular, I think she's 20, 21, 22 years old. You black but right? This is the one I did not too long ago too, right? Say right. Because this young black male officer got his remandment by this violent Anglo twinish KKK type woman on that situation, right? And that's again the Real CP show, the podcast part of it. And let me still show you a picture here. Give me a second. This is where the black police officer, young black police officer, got his remandment, and she was belligerent. And I think this club or bar, whatever it was, and she was just going off and being violent, and they took her to jail, and she was still being violent and kicking, and then she salivated in the face of this black officer. And what happened to her? Nothing. They still treated her with humanity, right? See, that's why I said that violence is ingrained in certain ones within certain parts of Panamanian culture, numbers of women, certain ones within the Panamanian culture of males, one it applies to, right? This is violence that numbers of them are ingrained with generationally. One applies to. But they keep trying to tell black on black crime, black on black crime, black on black crime, right? And they know it's not enough black American males, black American females to sit there and checkmate this nonsense. So, but let me go ahead and share my screen again, and let's start off with the article. I'm getting to a point here. So let me go ahead and share my article. I'll share my screen. Which one here? Okay, give me one moment here. Which one here, man? Okay, here we go. All right. Make sure you can see that here. Okay. Again, this is gonna be a real short show. And I like to be able to do these things as a timepiece purpose, right? Because you have to keep a timepiece on this violence of white on white criminality, white on white criminality, white on white criminality fatigue. Because again, over and over again, because when Trumpism, right, in a few more years, right, because he can't go to a third term, and how the system decides to who they want to put in office and stuff like that. So they can't blame Trumpism again and stuff like that and different things, right? But hatred, no matter what. When Trump is not in the office for the third term, right, and whoever else is put in position, watch what happened after the election then, 2028, right? Let's see what happens again in 2028 and 2029 when it starts coming effect. Let's see in 2029 if there's still going to be less black pain, right? By certain ones within certain parts of Panama-based culture of hatred that's ingrained. Let's see if there's going to be less black pain from numbers of other personnel who have the hatred toward black Americans. And again, I'm to my cool sellouts. Watch. It's still going to keep happening, right? What we know about the suspect, the Anglo suspect in the Delhi, Michigan church shooting. Let me make sure you can see that. Authorities identified Thomas Jacob Sanford as the suspect in the shooting and fireness at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Mormons in Grand Blanc Township. On that, the person accused in a fatal shooting and fire Sunday at a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Church Township, Michigan, is a 40-year-old Anglo male with a military background. You got to watch this. Thomas Jacob Sanford is from Burton, a city of nearly 30,000 people, roughly 6 miles from Grand Blanc Township. Both are suburbs. Both are suburbs of Flint. Didn't matter, did it? Enforcement people said that the Anglo attacker rammed the church with his vehicle, got out and opened fire with an assault rifle. Of this personnel of this entity said he also appears to have used an accelerant to start a fire. At least 4 Anglo personnel were unalive in the attack, 2 of whom were shot and 8 were injured. No, enforcement personnel unalived Sanford in a parking lot behind the church, enforcement people said. But I think there was some kind of, oh, you know what? Give me a second. So let me see the picture of him. All right. You see here, Sanford's family had no answers for his action or in shock. His father said in an exclusive statement to NBC News, "We are devastated. We don't know what to think." The statement said, "Our hearts and prayers go out to the Grand Blanc community and all those affected by this tragedy." Sanford joined the Marine Corps in 2004, according to the Marine records, and held the titles of organizational, automotive mechanic, and vehicle recovery operator. In 2007, he started a nearly 7-month deployment under Operation Iraq Freedom and left the Corps. A few months later, the record shows Sanford achieved the rank of sergeant and had his last duty assignment at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, before he left the Marines in June 2008, according to the records. Watch the switchery. See, you see how you see this? They trying to throw in some minimizing, right? Well, he was in the service and Iraqi freedom, and you have to watch these people how they play these little disgusting games. If this would have been a black man that did that, and he was in a service like that, you best believe they're not going to be like, well, like this last part. He was awarded the Marine Corps' Good Conduct Medal, the Sea Service Deployment Ribbon, the Iraq Campaign Ribbon, the Global War and Terrorism Service Medal, and the National Defense Service Medal, the records show. But there was a correction. Oh, see, right? Another picture of him right here. Oh, and by the way, talking about he had a Trump shirt on. Keep that in mind when I said that too. When I'm showing this, he had a Trump shirt on this. Now there was see that with the one picture I showed earlier. Again, numbers of times you don't see quite enough people having a truck with 2 American flags on the back of their truck. This is usually geared toward numbers of clan type mentality, Anglo personnel, the ones applies to in general, right? With very few exceptions, or someone also that has this Confederate mentality, Confederate States of America type of mentality still, right? This ain't about patriotism like that. You don't sit there and have 2 American flags in the back of your truck like that. This is some old backwoods type stuff, or if it's in a certain city or town, this ain't no patriotic type stuff like this, right? Because this harbingers back to, again, like a Civil War type time frame, early 1900s, on some anti-American blackism, and they dress this in a veil of putting American flag. And what they're saying is that, look, this is their country, and this is for Angloism, right? A lower level of Angloism, what they're talking about, right? Because this is what many of them are that's doing stuff like that, a low level of Angloism, right? Now, there's a correction, said a previous version of the article misstated who said that the suspect using an accelerant, it was what this person does, but the whole point is the person that got the vehicle and they use whatever they use, and they sit there and did this kind of stuff right here, right? That's the bottom line of that part. So, but let me go ahead and play this particular video as well. And there was a picture I showed earlier about he was smiling and everything, because there was various pictures I saw that he was smiling, or he was acting like, or he showed him in some kind of human way and things like that, right? And when I showed you just a little bit earlier, how well, he had a good conduct medal, and he was in Operation Iraqi Freedom or whatever it was, and he got this all right there. You have to kind of watch them. How they kind of try to humanize him and try to throw in some, well, he was in the service, and so the HELO what? There are people right now, there are Black Americans right now in the service who know there's still some racial racism going on right now. But at the same time, you will not hear any kind of programs specifically for Black Americans. Oh, see, people don't understand. See, the system knows there's not enough Black Americans to bring those kind of things up. Say, wait a minute. We need in the service some programs specifically for Black Americans, right? How many things you have things for women concerns? How many things you have other things for Howard minorities? How many programs they have for L-ness and G-ness and B-ness and T-ness and Q-ness and 3 and 5? How many programs like that, right? But you don't see no program, any kind of program specific for Black Americans who have been the foundation in the bedrock of joining the service, and still by their percentages in relating to the population of Black folks still are within the top main people joining the service and have been the most patriotic people in America for centuries and still have been shown the most hatred. Boy, you talking about some ghastly stuff.
In Grand Blanc, Michigan, authorities searching for a motive in a horrifying mass shooting at a church set ablaze.
We have an active shooter of the church. The building is also on fire.
Authorities say 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford crashed a truck into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints during Sunday worship and immediately started shooting at parishioners with an assault rifle.
We heard a big bang and it blew the doors in the church, and then everything after that was chaos.
Adults rushing to shield children from the barrage of bullets. Authorities say Sanford then poured gasoline in the church and set it on fire. 2 senior U.S. poured gasoline in the church and set it on fire. 2 bullets. Authorities say children from the barrage of bullets. Authorities say Sanford then poured gasoline in the church and set it on fire. 2 senior U.S. law enforcement officials briefed on the investigation, telling NBC News as many as 3 improvised devices were found at the scene. They say it's not clear whether the devices were found. Improvised devices were found at the scene. NBC News as many as 3 improvised devices were found at the scene. They say it's not clear. Law enforcement officials briefed on the investigation, telling NBC News as many as 3 improvised devices were found at the scene. They say it's not clear whether they were incendiary or explosive devices. This morning, investigators say at least 4 people are dead and 8 others injured. This morning, investigators say at least 4 people are dead and 8 others injured. Authorities later vetting bomb threats at other area churches. Bomb threats at other area churches injured. Authorities later vetting bomb threats at other area churches.
Oh, you didn't hear too much about that. And you best believe that had nothing to do with black folks, black Americans. But you know, people still got to be talking about black on black crime, black on black crime, black on black crime, black on black crime. Right? And it got nothing to do with black Americans. But this is this mental sickness, a true mental sickness, not some little insultingness and people are just throwing out the word mental illness, right? When you start hearing more and more criminalities of white on white crime, white on white crime, white on white crime, notice how you keep hearing more throwing out genericalities of, well, you know, some mental illness. But if there is that rareness of black Americans that have done some things, right, to a person or personnel, then they blur it out with criminality and stuff like that. But they don't say, well, you know what, that black man or black woman suffered from mental illness. Nope. And they know it's not enough black Americans by the millions that don't know the games on that and do not call that stuff out.
This act of violence has no place in our state or anywhere else in our country.
Authorities say Sanford, who lived in the area and according to an NBC News review, had no criminal history.
Let me play that again. So I'm gonna show you something a little bit. Just keep that in mind what they said.
According to an NBC News review, had no criminal history, died during a shootout with.
Let me repeat that last part again.
Who lived in the area and according to an NBC News review, had no criminal history.
Just keep that in mind.
Died during a shootout with police.
So however they got to the shot, boom, boom, with him and the force of people, and he got unalive.
So far, his motive or potential connection to the church unclear. Sanford was in the Marines from 2004 to 2008.
And you see how you see the picture, right? You see how they showing him, right, in a certain way. See, this is some coward kind of stuff, right? Notice how they won't do that. You best believe if a black American male was doing this, right? Same situation or similar situation, right? And these white on white criminalities that's happening consistently toward each other. Now, black on black crime, black on black crime. Notice how they're not the ones that say some black American males that say when the service, right? Oh, and watch how, say, for instance, they're not going to be showing pictures of him smiling and things like this and talk about, you know, his militariness, you know, how he served and he got a good conduct or he was doing this in the service and, you know, and loyalty and all this kind of stuff like that. Nope.
The Marine Corps confirming he was an Iraq War veteran.
You see how they go? See, these people are demons, but they're brilliant because they love, these people study how the psychological chaos type people and deflect from white on white crime, white on white crime, white on white crime. Again, as if there's never been any kind of people in the service present time, today is October 5th, 2025. Last year, 2 years now, 2005, 1995, 1990, 1985, 1975, 1965, 1955, 1945, acting as if there's no such thing as blood pain of anti-American black that's been happening in various sections of the service. They're just going to pretend that didn't happen because somebody said they personnel in the service. Are they veterans now? What the got to do a damn thing? There are some hateful people. What if their personnel was hateful Klan type member, hateful anti-American black before they got in the service? That don't change them. You see, you have to watch these games they keep playing.
Overnight, SWAT teams searching his home for clues. President Trump Sunday posting about Michigan, writing in part, "This appears to be yet another targeted attack on Christians in the United States of."
And you see that picture I showed you, and somebody was talking about he had a Trump shirt on. But you see how that goes, but you got personnel, that makes sure not to bring that up. And also, again, interesting as well, that how you have people that make sure not to talk about how just because you say you're a Christian don't mean nothing. It is by the actions, not perfection, not perfect, or you can try to be perfectionality of trying to perfect your Christianness. But for many people, don't even come halfway of that, right? Gigantic, a lot of hypocrites on that. And what about still less than 100 years ago, less than 50 years ago, even 21st century? There are examples, people, for people who don't know, there was just a pastor. There was just a Christian pastor just recently. Today again, October the 5th, 2025, and it was just recently, there was a demonic, angry, anti-American black pastor that was saying such hateful, demonous, anti-American black rhetoric. Didn't talk about no other culture, didn't talk about white or white criminality, didn't talk about that Klan stuff that he is infected with inside of himself. He didn't sit there and talk about how, again, Black Americans are the main people who have been shown the most hatred in America for centuries, even though American blacks don't commit the most criminality. He didn't talk about that. He didn't sit and talk about the bedrock for this country within Christianity. Besides, numbers of Anglo people have been, black folks have been the number one people who have been Christians in this country. Besides certain denominations of Christianity, right? But he blatantly talked about some anti-American blackism come from his mouth about how he felt about American blacks and blame American blacks for all kinds of stuff. But he's supposed to be some kind of Christian pastor. And how many pastors right now in certain towns, in certain cities right now that do not want to sit there and have Black Americans in their church? Huh? There was a story a few years ago. I don't recall all of the details, but there was another pastor who was telling his congregation that he basically didn't want American blacks in his church either. Right? And still, less than 100 years ago, how many personnel within various sections of Panama's culture who sat there and was lynching Black Americans, numbers of Anglo women, Anglo males, the ones who were doing this, they sat there and watched how, however devious, Klan hateful freaking members within their darn church once applies to that sit there and strung up Black Americans in some of those towns, some of those cities, and they on that Saturday or Friday night, and then say on Saturday night, and the next day they went to church like it was nothing. How many Black males have suffered by the hands of hypocrites within certain type of Angloism, hypocriteness of facade Christianity that they pretended that they were practicing, and were still lynching Black Americans? How many right now in certain bad seeds, should we say, you got a calculable number of Black American males that are going missing right now in the 21st century and getting found that they were being hung? And how mysterious circumstance you had certain ones within certain bad seeds, Angloism, what applies to making excuses for it. And how many of them are fake Christians, hypocrite versions? Huh? But can go to church that Sunday, or some Bible study on some Wednesday or Thursday, where it is, and think nothing about that. They know what happened to that black man that got lynched. And they know it. Our numbers of black American women that go missing themselves consistently, right? And some of these bad thieves, they know exactly what happened. But they don't say nothing because there's a code of sit there and internal hatred to never sit there and tell the truth. Right?
Of America. Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer writing, violence anywhere, especially in a place of worship, is unacceptable.
Oh, but of course, how many black churches have been boomed? Huh? Still. But they don't want to talk about that. They don't, again, talking about white on white criminality or white on black criminality. That happens way more than people realize. They don't want to talk about that. Right? And it's almost like it's some cowless scaring us. It's almost like, well, we can't really, what mostly it is as well is that there are certain numbers of Anglos and white adjacent Angloism, and someone who want to be like white adjacent Angloism, that they don't want or they cannot compute. It is generationally ingrained not to compute white on white criminality. So it's almost like, again, walking on eggshells. They cannot literally compute white on white criminality. It's right in front, like right now. This particular violent Anglo male, the one this applies to in this situation, he sat there and drove his truck to that church. Fire boomed that church with many Anglo males, Anglo women, Anglo kids in that church, and it didn't matter. And then when he was doing pop, and unalived several Anglo personnel and injured numbers of other various Anglo personnel. That is some devious stuff. And there are some personnel within the Panamanese culture who are sitting there getting white on white criminality fatigue toward each other. Right?
Never have I ever heard of anything happening like this. Heard of anything.
Especially in a place of worship is unacceptable.
Never have I ever heard of anything happening like this ever in my life.
This guy is pure ignorance. This is pure ignorance. I don't know if he's regular Angloism or white Angloism adjacent or whatever he is, or Anglo adjacent, but that ignorance that he's talking about is pure ignorance on that situation. You like, what astronomical planet is he on that white on white criminality has not been happening consistently over and over and over again? Now, remember on this, what you heard earlier, or what you saw earlier, when they was trying to put some humanization in him and show him his Marine uniform. And for the people who don't know, again, let me relate to this situation. I did another podcast on this. The Montford Point Marines. The Montford Point Marines segregated black Marines not a long time ago, less than 100 years ago. Because the military wasn't desegregated until around 1947, 1948. That is less than 100 years ago. That is after World War II, 1941 and 1945. That is after that bad man, Hitler, that bad man that he's poster boarded, that knows the people tell you, you better not ever forget. If you do try to minimize that, you're called anti-Semitic. So you better not freaking never forget or minimize that. But at the same time, the military was still segregated after World War II ended. And they know numbers of American blacks, about 1 million, don't understand the power of history. And this is why you got millions of people that continue to keep disrespecting American blacks with very few exceptions, that don't know the power of history on that. So I make this point because in this picture right here, in that last video I showed you, they were talking about how, oh, well, you know, they didn't see any kind of criminality. If you remember that, they said they didn't see any kind of criminality. Keep that in mind for a second. I'm just going to show you this for a second. Let me show my screen. Just keep that in mind. Because that show said, the NBC show, whatever they show, they said they didn't hear anything about, on this situation, they didn't hear anything about him having a criminal background, right? Now, what in the world of Haiti's banana peels does it show? The Anglo male named as the shooter in Michigan, LDS Latter-day Saints Church attack had an arrest record in Utah. What the? You see this in your own eyes. The Anglo male named as a shooter in Michigan, LDS Latter-day Saints Church attack had an arrest record in Utah. But you heard in the video I just showed you what they were talking about. Well, in their research, they didn't see anything about any type of arrest, any type of criminality, which really means that depends on the situation, right? Sometimes people just haven't got caught, right? Golly, man. Summit County, Utah, September 3rd, 2025, well, today is October the 5th, 2025. 15 years before Thomas Jacob Sanford was neutralized. They talking about just a few minutes, they talking about last week sometime, by enforcement outside the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints meeting house at Grand Blanc, Michigan. He was apprehended by deputies of Utah Summit County, this particular office, for driving under the influence. On March 12, 2010, Sanford, then 24, and a Utah resident. You're talking about some irony that's going on in the situation in Utah. Woo, with white-on-white criminality. But he was taken into custody. He ultimately pleaded guilty. To the DR charge, paid a $750 fine, and was placed on probation for a year according to the court records. And one of the several news conferences held after the tragedy, Grand Blanc, this particular enforcement personnel said Sanford had been arrested also for crimes in the past, including burglary and operating while intoxicated. The personnel said did not go into detail. However, I don't go into all that. So you see already on that, I'm going to all that. So you see the whole point regardless is that he did have a criminality background. We have to kind of watch that a little bit. We really do, because see, this is getting ridiculous. Just saying, oh, they had a criminality background again. And that determines how, what, without certain situations. Because again, how many people just have not gotten caught? And how many people inside, if criminality was based upon some people's thought patterns of hatred, especially American blacks, oh, there are a lot of people that have criminality history. You best believe that on that. So I just want to sit there and show you the hypocrisy and not yet to watch the little white lies that some people do on various types of main medias and things like that. Because I sit there and showed you earlier, they was talking about how he did not have a criminality past like this, right? And still a piece of bubble gum. Come on now, right? Some jaywalking, stop, right? But I don't go into all that. So the thing about it is, one of the last things I want to show you was how, again, how they sit there and try to betray him like this. Well, he was this, he's in the Marine uniform and all that kind of stuff like this. Let me sit there and show you something here. Right? Let me sit there and show you something. Watch the games. This was another podcast I did not a long time ago on that. Cross burning leads to arrest. What do you mean by that? Give me a second here. Here. This is the name of the show, podcast I did of the Real CP Show. This black couple, both veterans, got their KKK reminded by these racism, anti-American black type personnel. But watch the naiveness of this black couple And how many are just like these people? They thought because they were in the service, right? That mattered when they got out the service, that there's going to be like no racism happens in the service, no racial racism happen out the service. And they got a remindment. Let's see, watch this.
So now what are we to do? Still live next to a cross-burning racist? We feel threatened. We feel that not enough laws are in place to deal with this. And there needs to be
Grabbing those.
So now what are we to do? Still live next to a cross-burning racist? We feel threatened. We feel that not enough laws are in place to deal with this. And there needs to be some accountability.
South Carolina is one of 2 states without a hate crime law, and Williams says she does not want hate to run them out of their dream neighborhood.
We just don't want to move. We've had this conversation, and this is really a heartbreaking and hard decision for us. We're just highly disappointed that this behavior is taking place in this day and age.
The amount of ignorance in this conversation that they just had. Look at both of them. Excuse me. And these two were veterans. These two were veterans. And they got black pained. And you can tell by their aura that they have some naiveness. And they're not like some young adults. These are older, grown black adults. And they were in the service. And you can tell that they didn't have no racial racism going on toward them. They thought, hey, you know what? You know, no such thing as that. Because you can tell. And they're at the service and they be doing their thing and hiring neighbors and hiring people. They didn't show them direct anti-American black. But they, you know, but again, how many probably showed them indirect, but they were naive not to see what was going on, right? And how many times you got people similar to this? Well, you know, I don't know why those black folks talking about racism and stuff like that. We didn't experience. No, that means that you were ignorant. That because you didn't sit there and see the signs that they were sitting there showing you, because you did not want to sit there and see what's right in front. And there are quite a number of black Americans just like them, with very few exceptions. And this is why there are so many black Americans, about a million, that continue to get disrespected, not only by certain ones within the Palmese culture, but ones that play under the people of color banner, the minority nonsensical banner, when numbers of Anglo women are considered minorities. See that game, right? And how many of them double dip with the women type of resources and programs, and then double dip with the minorities sitting there programs, the ones who do this, right? See how the game's going at. And you got the ones who slide under the community of color and underutilized, marginalized communities, and numbers of immigrationist personnel who slot on these various type programs and stuff like that. Oh, the game is tough. And millions of American blacks do not know these type of games. But sticking to what I'm getting at, these particular this black couple got a remindment because they were naive. I make this point in that you saw earlier that this guy, that they were sitting there showing how him, right, the one that got unalived, that drove to that church in Grand Blanc, Michigan, right, and sat there and fire boomed arson style that church with innocent kids, innocent men, innocent women, elderly, etc., and then boom, 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 people in that church, right? White on white criminality, white on white fatigue. But the numbers of people dastardly in certain parts of main media and pseudo main media and etc., the numbers also the Charlie Kirk aficionados who sat there and saw and heard about Charlie Kirk being unalived by an Anglo male, and then he would sit there and memorialize as he's some kind of god at the one at that big old giant stadium, was it Arizona or one of them other places, as he was a god. And I think there's some kind of NFL team, something like that was sitting there showing some kind of whatever it is, accolades for him too, in some kind of way. You like, what? But when Colin Kaepernick knelt down, You had people that lost their freaking minds. You had certain number of certain people within the NFL who know who they are. Well, you know what? Can't have my Negroes doing that, right? Then I'm telling you, that's a whole different topic of disrespect, because you got 30-some plus teams in NFL and you don't have any Black American owners. What? And I ain't talking about no coons either, right? That's a whole different topic in itself, boy. So you get the point I'm getting at, how they try to portray this guy, Maureen. He had some good conduct medal in Operation Rack Freedom or whatever else he was in, and how he was doing this and doing that. Well, they ain't doing nothing. These other two, the black couple I sit there and showed you, they were veterans too, and they still got black pained. A lot of people hear about that story, right? Look at this picture. Look at this picture. Look at this. Look at that particular very violent arsonist Anglo male did. Look what he did to those innocent people in that church. But at the same time, again, when you start bringing up we start bringing up, hey, white on white crime, white on white crime, white on white criminality fatigue. This is what numbers of people within certain parts of economics culture do. They ain't trying to hear all that. And then they try to go back and talk about, well, black on black crime, no. When they start talking that nonsense, go somewhere with that name. Go somewhere with that game. Go somewhere with that deflection. Go. Right? Not playing that. Right? Because it's ingrained to be a deflection mechanism within certain ones within economics culture. It's naturally ingrained to show deflectionary tactics within themselves. So when this particular demon, arsonist, murderer, Anglo male of those innocent children, women, men, elderly people in that Latter-day Saints church, that here they are sitting there praying and here they are praying and doing stuff like that, and their own type of worshipness, right? Worshipness. And look what happened to them by an angry arsonist type of Anglo type male. But at the same time, we start talking about, hey man, this white on white criminal fatigue, again, what are they going to do about that? That's what they do. Right? That's what they do. And they also do this too.
Nothing. I know nothing. I know nothing.
Yes, that's what numbers of personnel within certain sections of the economics culture do. And also, don't get it confused. There are many deflectionarity type people within certain white Angloism or Anglo adjacent ones. There are certain numbers of quite a number of black adjacent harder fleers, right? They couldn't get things done right in their country, fled their countries. And again, I'm not talking about some of the good ones. Those are very small amount that are allowed to come to America. Many of the other ones are just regular fleers, black adjacent fleers that want to be like some Anglos within the economics culture. And then have the nerve to try to talk about black Americans. And then have the nerve to try to regurgitate, well, black folks, this and black folks, the nerve. And they know it's not enough black Americans to roast that tail and tell them, you know what, you can easily go right back and fix your corruption in your country and fix the major tribalism going in your country and fix those things. Oh, I forgot, they don't matter in their own countries. That's why they had to flee, right? And again, that's very few exceptions. I'm not talking about some of the good brothers and sisters that come over and they're allowed to come over and still show humility and the respect due to, without black Americans, many wouldn't be in the country of America. And that is also for numbers of immigrationists, numbers of other people, high number of people of color, banner, minority banner, right? Thinking they're sneaky when many of them get resources. Don't get it confused. And they know that many American blacks are very naive because they don't know the games that's been going on. You got these people getting you got more people, more border break illegal immigrants getting reparations in some kind of way. Numbers of border break illegal immigrant, numbers of women every day breaking border immigration law, sitting there, the ones that are pregnant, sitting there getting free neonatal care, free pregnancy care, acting like they don't speak no English. And the ones they do don't still matter because they still, many of them are still getting free pregnancy care. And how many they're utilizing the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, never even seen the 14th Amendment Constitution, but they know they just get across that border and numbers of immigration personnel too, and bam, automatic citizenship for those kids. Based upon what Black Americans have been going through for centuries. Boy, you're talking about some hardcore game. But when you bring up those kind of things, you got people that do just like this. And they know numbers of Black Americans collectively are very naive to these games. And it's a sad thing with very small exceptions. So this white on white criminality is definitely getting out of hand. And the thing about it is there's not enough Black Americans to call this out of this completely overall white on white criminality fatigue epidemic that's going on. And even though that's not the responsibility of numbers of American Blacks, but when there are millions of American Blacks that accept people talking about Black on Black crime, Black on Black crime, Black on Black crime, and the number one people commit the most crimes, the numbers of ones within the predominant culture. You see how that disgusting game goes. The number one people who commit the most criminality and all these shootings is numbers of males within various sections of the predominant culture. The number one people out there who has the most hate crimes put upon them is not because they're some kind of immigrant group, not because some kind of generic Asian group, which is a freaking insult. Asia is a continent, right? Iran, Iraq, certain parts of Russia is considered Asian. But you don't hear nobody talking about numbers of Iraqis walking around America, ones walking around from Iraq and Iran, talking about they Asians. So when they got this Asian hate crime bill, less than a couple of years, or less than 2025, not a long time ago, when it was thrown out as if it was Black folks that was committing anti-Asian hate crime bill, anti-Asian hate crime. They found out it was known as the males that was sitting there doing that, but they still got an anti-Asian hate crime bill, even though again, Asia is a continent. You see how this game goes, right? But how many numbers of what we call certain numbers of Asians commit anti-American Black hatred? Oh, there are some Black people that know what I'm talking, Black Americans who know what I'm talking about, who've experienced anti-American Black hatred by certain numbers of Asian personnel, let alone some white Hispanic ones. Oh my, that's a whole different topic in itself. And some immigration personnel, right? And some other people. But no anti-American Black hate crime bill. You see the outright audacity and the disgusting tactic of that. But in 2026, you got people they're gonna want Black folks to go out there, Black Americans to go out there and vote, right? With no tangibles. 2028, you're gonna have however numbers of personnel that's still gonna expect Black Americans to go out there and vote, still for no tangibility-ness. The gains are strong. So thank you for tuning in to the Real CP Show.